Well, good afternoon and welcome to South Arts informational webinar for the cross-sector impact grants. Before I begin, I want to let you know that you can enable the live transcription feature, so please do that if you need it. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website by Friday. Today's webinar will focus on the letter of interest process. We will begin with brief staff introductions, then we'll provide an overview of the program before digging into the program requirements. We will definitely have time at the end to answer as many questions as we can. Just be sure to use the Q&A box as your option to ask a question. Finally, I do want to mention that although we do offer this opportunity for previous grantees to apply for continued support, this webinar will focus on the letter of interest process for new applicants. I'm Nikki Estes, and I'm the Director of Presenting and Touring at South Arts. I manage several grant programs, including the cross-sector impact grants, and I also manage our dance initiatives. I'm joined today by our Communications Director, Ivan Shustak, who is working behind the scene to manage the technical needs of this webinar. Ivan will also facilitate the Q&A section a little bit later. Ivan, do you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and I will turn it back to Nikki.
Thank you. Okay, I am just going to turn off my video during the presentation to help avoid any technical issues, but I'll be back on camera to answer your questions towards the end. So I'd like to share a little bit more about South Arts, our mission, goals, and programming. To begin, South Arts' mission is advancing Southern vitality through the arts. Our work and purpose are designed to address the issues important to our Southern region and to link the South with the nation and the world through the arts. As a regional arts organization, we partner with the National Endowment for the Arts, state arts agencies in our 9-state region, and other foundations to deliver services and provide programming. Most of our programs operate within our 9-state region, but we also have programs that reach beyond these states to serve the national arts community. We offer artist grants and fellowships, community and organization grants, and other programs and services. So we're thrilled that we're able to offer the Cross-Sector Impact Grant Program for a 4th year. I'll spend a few minutes talking about the what and why for this program. This program is designed to support partnerships between the arts and non-arts sector in creating and developing programs that address challenges and the strengths of the communities today. The program brings together the arts and community or social issues. For example, eligible projects might include programs which address arts and aging, arts and equity, arts and youth nutrition, or the arts and homelessness. And when I say the arts, I mean all art forms, from performing arts to media arts. For projects new to this program, we encourage applications from new partnerships. However, projects which deepen and expand existing partnerships are also encouraged to apply. Applicants are encouraged to think about the possibilities for projects and partnerships and to think about creative and varied possibilities. This program is not designed to support ongoing educational programs, but rather to help applicants leverage their partnerships. Programs which deliver arts services to a constituency are not for this program. Traditional arts education or educational programs are not eligible. For example, an after-school program that provides classes to students would not be a good fit for this program. I want to emphasize that for partnerships between two sectors is what we're looking for, and we do mean a true partnership, not just delivering and providing a service or program for another organization or constituency, but truly working together developing the program together, having some shared goals, and also some shared risk. So why did we create this program? Well, we wanted to be more strategic and impactful with our granting dollars. This program closely aligns with two of our strategic goals, which include connecting artists and arts professionals in the South to resources that will increase opportunities for success, and to advance impactful arts-based programs that recognize and address the needs and evolving trends of a wide range of communities in the South. And we recognize that partnerships and working across sectors can bring new opportunity, increased effectiveness, and greater depth to projects. We also know that the arts and artists play a vital role in addressing challenges and harnessing the strength of communities. In addition, rapid change is happening in our communities and throughout the South specifically. Over the past few years, including the pandemic and social justice, have only increased our need for programs like this, which allow us to strengthen our communities using the arts. So given these values and our goals, we are ready to further the impact of arts and. So before I review the letter of interest and application process, I want to acknowledge that this is a very competitive process. Last year, we received about 115 LOIs, and we invited 22 of these to submit a full application. We funded 17 projects. 13 were new projects, and 4 were from previous grantees. Our grants totaled almost $230,000. This year, we anticipate funding about 10 new applicants and approximately 5 previous applicants or grantees. For projects new to this program, we use a 2-part application process to lower the barrier for entry and to reduce the burden on potential applicants by only initially requiring a letter of interest. So let's review the timeline. The letter of interest deadline is Monday, August 1st. Applicants will be notified whether or not they can submit a full application by August 29th, and full applications will be due by October 3rd. Everyone submitting a full application, if you're invited to do so, will be notified in mid-November of funding decisions. And the project period begins January 1st of 2023 and goes through June 30th of 2024. So again, this webinar will focus on the letter of interest process or stage. And so if you are a current or previous grantee, you will only need to submit a full application, not an LOI, and we will notify you when it is available. For those that are invited to submit a full application, you will receive instructions by August 29th. For this partnership program, we are looking for 2 principal partnering entities, which can include organizations or artists. This does not mean that you cannot have additional individuals or organizations involved, but you are limited to 2 principal partners. For these 2 partners, one must be from the arts sector and one partner must be from the non-art sector. For example, a nonprofit arts organization or a unit of government can partner with a nonprofit organization or unit of government from the non-art sector. Also, an individual artist or ensemble and a nonprofit organization or unit of government from a non-art sector would also qualify for a partnership. But please note that an artist or an arts organization without a non-arts partner is ineligible. Also, partnerships between different university departments are not eligible. Again, individuals and organizations, in addition to the 2 partnering entities, can be involved in the project's implementation, but no grant funds can be given to the additional individual or organizations. So as I mentioned earlier, all art forms are eligible for the cross-sector impact grant. This includes, but is not limited to performing arts, literary arts, visual arts, film or media arts, traditional and folk arts, as well as multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary art forms. The eligible areas of community impact include, but are not limited to, education, the environment, health and human services, infrastructure, and social justice. Now let's take a look at a few of the eligibility criteria. All partners must be located or reside in South Art's 9-state region, which includes Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, the Carolinas, and Tennessee. Applicants must also be in good standing with us, meaning that there are no outstanding final reports and you have complied with all previous grant requirements. Although the LOI and application includes 2 principal partners, only one must have tax-exempt 501c3 status, and that entity must also have a unique entity identifier, also known as the UEI. The UEI is a number given by the federal government and is required since we re-grant federal dollars. This is a new requirement, and I encourage everyone to get registered now so that you can get your number in time for the LOI deadline. You can find additional information and instructions about how to get this number from our website. And as I just mentioned, we re-grant federal dollars, so federal agencies or divisions of the federal government are not eligible for this grant program. So let's take a look at some of the project requirements now. Your project must include a minimum of 2 public-facing events. These events may be virtual or in person. And what we mean by public-facing is that one event must be a public presentation, such as an exhibition, a screening, a reading, or some other activity that provides individuals with an arts experience or encounter. This can be a free or ticketed event, but must be marketed and open to anyone who wishes to attend. The second activity can include an additional activity as described previously, or it can be an activity that provides greater context or deeper understanding of the arts experience, the art form, or the artistic process. This activity can be for a targeted audience or group of participants, such as students, other artists, or patients or caregivers, for example. Also, please remember that these are minimums, not maximums. We welcome projects that include more than 2 community engagement events. And just as important is accessibility. Projects must be accessible to anyone who wishes to participate. As part of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility work, South Arts prioritizes accessibility. You are required to ensure physical and programmatic access to individuals with disabilities. This is a federal requirement for federal funding, and it's also a civil rights issue. We hope that applicants understand the diverse needs of individuals with disabilities, and so we encourage you to think not only about physical and mobility, but also about vision, hearing, and cognitive disabilities. So now let's turn our attention to the budget. What is allowed and what is required? The minimum request for this grant program is $5,000 and the maximum request is $15,000 for new applicants. This grant program requires a 1-to-2 match. That means for every South Arts grant dollar, you must match the grant by 50 cents. So a $5,000 grant means a $2,500 match. Your match can include cash and in-kind contributions up to 50%. So for example, The $2,500 match can include $1,250 cash and $1,250 of in-kind contributions. So what are in-kind contributions? They are goods or services that have a specific value, but that are provided in lieu of cash. For example, a local art supply store may be a supporter and provide paint for your project at no cost. You can consider the cost of the paint as the in-kind contribution. Like in the past, we anticipate fully funding projects. This means you want to be very realistic about your budget and your grant request. This is not a program to over-ask to get what you really need. And be sure that you can match your request. So as another example, a $15,000 grant means that your match is $7,500. This also means that your project expenses total at least $22,500. So what expenses are eligible? Please take a look at this list, but it's also on our website for what's eligible expenses that can be supported by this grant. This listing provides examples, but is not a complete list. So if you have a question, please do ask. Other expenses may be eligible, but please keep in mind that the expenses must be directly related to the project. Ineligible expenses are not flexible. These include overhead expenses, indirect expenses, and staff time. For this grant program, South Arts defines temporary public art projects as those designed to exhibit or be shown for not more than 1 year. And so permanent art projects or installations are not eligible because capital expenses are not eligible with federal funds. And speaking of art creation, these projects are not intended for the creation of new work as the central or primary element of the project. However, work that is created as a secondary outcome or in which community participants are involved in the creative process is allowed. So when developing your budget, and yes, we do understand that this is a preliminary budget and it may change, I want to encourage you to ensure that there is consistency between your budget and the narrative. They should work together and they should support each other. Your letter of interest will be reviewed with this criteria in mind: artistic quality, project design, community impact, and capacity. We will be evaluating LOIs on their potential to most closely address these 4 areas. These are also the same criteria that will be used for full application evaluation as well. Priority will be given to projects taking place in small communities, rural communities of 50,000 people or less, and isolated communities, which may be communities that are isolated due to socioeconomic factors, education gaps, or perhaps lack of infrastructure. In addition, I previously mentioned our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We have prioritized this commitment to ensure that Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led organizations, LGBTQIA+ led organizations, and organizations representing persons with disabilities are represented as both applicants and grantees. We encourage applications for projects that engage a broad range of diversity. So before you submit an LOI, we want to share with you some questions that might help you assess whether or not you're ready to apply. We want to share some thoughts about readiness, and these are not additional review criteria or funding criteria. These are simply questions meant to help you think through your partnership. So before you apply, please consider these questions. Do the partners have a history of successfully working with others? Have the 2 partners worked together in the past, or are they working together now? Is the separation of responsibilities and authority between the two partners established and agreed upon, including the financial responsibilities? And do the partners have complementary strengths and resources such that this partnership is necessary for success? So now we'll just take a look at what you'll need to do if you want to move forward with a letter of interest. You must use our e-grant system to submit your LOI and the required information by 11:59 p.m. Eastern on August 1st. Please remember that this is an Eastern time deadline, and unfortunately, we cannot accept late or incomplete LOIs. So I encourage you to not wait until the last minute to submit the LOI. You will need to address 3 main questions in the narrative, and these questions will probably take up about 2 pages of text, just so that you kind of understand the length of the LOI process. These questions include the area of social or community impact that you're trying to influence in your community, and why and how the artistic component of this project will be effective in addressing it. The 2 partners, the nature of their relationship or partnership, and why these partners are working together. And finally, the main activities of this project, including the where and when the project will take place. You will also need to include a preliminary budget using a template that we provide. Finally, we ask for demographic and basic partner information, but please note that demographic information is purely for informational purposes and is not used during the review process. You can access our e-grant system from the South Arts webpage, and you can go to the cross-sector impact web pages to find a link to e-grant. If you've never used South Arts e-grant system before, you will be required to create a new account. Information entered in the LOI will transfer to the full application should you be invited to submit a full application. The first page of the LOI collects basic information about each partner, and this simply shows a screenshot of that first page. The second page collects information about the project and the budget. Again, a template for the budget is provided for you to use. When you submit your LOI, you will receive an email copy of your submission. This also serves as a confirmation that we have received your LOI. So what can you expect after you submit your LOI? Well, to wrap up, I'm going to also add a few more suggestions and reminders. First, I would suggest that you periodically check our website for updates along with answered questions in the FAQs, and also additional materials to assist you, such as this recording. Also, please know that we are not able to review LOIs, but we are happy to answer any questions that you have. We just really encourage you to carefully read the guidelines and the FAQs, because many answers can be found there. A limited number of those submitting LOIs will be invited to submit a full application. You will receive an email by August 29th, letting you know whether or not you are being invited to the next phase. Full applications are due approximately 5 weeks later on October 3rd by 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Again, late and incomplete applications will not be accepted. Also, you'll be invited to have one-on-one calls with me to discuss your project or application in September. Applicants will be notified in mid-November about funding. So that is really just a general overview of the program. We'll spend the next 30 minutes reviewing your questions. And again, if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature so that we can get your questions answered. Ivan, do you want to read the questions? And I'm going to come back on camera.
Yes, we've received quite a few good questions, and we will go through some of the ones that we received. So here we go. We have one question from somebody who is asking if this grant could be used to bring in artists from other countries to do educational as well as performance-based work.
1 second. I'm gonna try to get my camera to come back on.
Certainly.
That is not working. Okay, so no, because all partners in this project must be located or reside within our 9-state region. And really, we are expecting that all partners will be from the same state or community, because much of this project is really centered around community engagement and involvement. And so partners can certainly reside outside of within our 9-state region, but we're really hoping that the partners are within the same community because of the intent of this program to really deeply be engaged with community members.
Great. We had another question. Can programs like workshops or classes fulfill the requirements? And is there a minimum number of students or participants time? Thank you.
Ivan, what was the first part of the question?
Can programs like workshops or classes fulfill the requirements for this grant program?
Certainly, it could be one of the public-facing events that is meant for a targeted group. And there's no minimum or maximum of the number of participants.
Great. Can two departments from the same organization apply as principal partners? We are a city government, not a university.
No, we're really looking for partners that are separate from each other. So even within city government, we're looking for a partner that resides outside of city government.
Okay. We have an established partnership with a local history museum in our city to create creative place-keeping public art, public history projects. We've gone through 2 iterations of the public art call and would like to apply this grant to help for our 3rd phase. Would that be appropriate?
One more time.
Sure. We have an established partnership with a local history museum and our city to create creative place-keeping public art, public history projects. We've gone through 2 iterations of the public art call and would like to apply to this grant to help fund our 3rd phase. Would that be appropriate?
So it would, and as I mentioned earlier, is that we certainly are looking for projects that engage new partners, but we're also happy to accept applications or LOIs from projects that already exist, as long as it is to extend or further the project in some way.
We had another question. What about nonprofits that have fiscal sponsors? Can they apply?
Unfortunately, we do not accept fiscal sponsors.
Just as a follow-up from Ivan, can one of the 2 partners be a fiscal sponsor if the other one is a full nonprofit organization?
So no, only one of the partners has to have 501c3 status or be a unit of government.
Thank you.
And I don't know, maybe if you can enable my camera, I don't know, because you had a special feature where
Let
my
me
name
see.
wouldn't show up. Oh,
Try now.
nope.
Nope.
Okay.
Looks like your camera might be having issues, but I did stop your screen from sharing. So,
Okay.
okay. The next question is, can you please expand on how a nonprofit providing after-school arts programming might not be a good match for this grant? We did have a few questions asking about education programs and schools.
Okay. So the real intent of this program is to support projects that fall outside of traditional arts education. So what we're looking at is to use the arts to address a community or social issue. And so after school programs are not a good fit. What we're looking to do is to address an issue, harnessing the power of community engagement and involvement and using the arts to do that. So it really falls a little bit beyond a traditional arts education program.
Great, thank you. Does the partnering org have to be a nonprofit, or can a for-profit business or entity be the second partner?
So only one partner has to have 501c3 status.
Great. Are both the arts and non-arts entities tasked with taking the lead to bring the project to completion and post-project deliverables?
Yes, so we are expecting a full partnership, which means they're both working together. And without the partnership, the project wouldn't happen. And as I also mentioned in the webinar, we're not looking for partnerships that are simply delivering a service to the partner's constituency, but the partners are actually working together to provide the project, to support the community need, to address the issue.
Great.
And that they're completely involved with the planning and implementation of the project.
Thank you. When you were talking about new applicants versus previous recipients earlier, did you mean for this particular program or new to South Arts?
I meant for this particular program. So if you have applied to the Cross-Sector Impact Grant Program before, you will be invited to continue the project should you wish to do so. So it really is just focused on previous Cross-Sector Impact Grant applicants.
Great. This is a question about in-kind donations. Are discount art supplies and services from local businesses eligible for in-kind budgeting?
Yes.
Great. We have another question about for-profit and nonprofit partners. So this might be a similar answer, but would an entrepreneurial fashion design / artist set up as an online LLC in 2017, working with an arts nonprofit qualify?
No, because the partnership requires a primary partner from the arts sector and a primary partner from the non-art sector.
Let's see. You said that this grant is not for new work. Can you please elaborate what that means?
So what I meant was that this grant, the intention of this grant is not to create new artwork. The intent of this grant is to use the arts to further a community need. If artwork is created as a result of partners coming together to address a community need, that is allowed. But the intent of this grant program is not to create work.
Okay. We had another question about educational programming. So if this is an entity tied with an education program, we are not eligible, correct? For example, if it is to perform an original musical that will be performed at a school and incorporate lesson plans that go with it and connected to real historical events, would that be eligible?
I'd really have to know more, perhaps, who the other primary partner is.
Great.
And when schools were mentioned, K through 12 schools are not eligible, but universities or colleges are.
And I am providing Nikki's contact information in the chat window so that people can have that for follow-up. If we do not get to your questions during this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Another question is whether an artist can be one of the primary partners.
Yes. So if an artist is one of the primary partners, that means the second partner must be from the non-arts sector and would also have to be the 501c3 entity.
We had another question about the review criteria that you were going over and whether those were review criteria for the LOI or if those are the review criteria for the full application that will be coming afterwards.
It's actually used for both.
Thank you. We had another question about that this grant is not intended for the primary creation of new work, which I believe you went over. So next question is, my organization is a nonprofit educational career-based training programming involving local diverse demographics to support unity, increase infrastructure and economic development. They are coming together to produce a feature film, and after January 1st, 23, they will be in the editing, marketing, promotion, distribution phase. Will screening events satisfy the events component?
Yes.
Is there a time limit between when an organization last received a grant to determine new or returning eligibility?
Well, this grant, so if you are a returning applicant, and you're in the current fiscal year, this fiscal year doesn't end until, I believe it is, I have all my fiscal years mixed up. I can't remember if it's December or December of 22 or June of 23. I believe it's December of 22. So that means that all returning grantees should be within the time frame to continue their project. And I don't know if that timing is going to work out after this fiscal year, but we'll see. But returning applicants should very much line up with when this new grant period starts.
Okay. We have another question. Does the non-arts partner have to be a governmental entity?
No, it doesn't.
Oh.
The only requirement is that there is one partner from the arts sector and one partner from the non-arts sector. And one of those partners must be a 501c3 or a unit of government.
We had another question asking if there was information on what types of grants and organizations were supported last year. And to answer that, I'm going to paste a link in the chat window to a list on our website showing all previous cross-sector impact grant recipients. Attendees can browse through that and see the types of things that we have funded in the past.
Thank you, Ivan.
We have a question about whether the event can be a festival.
Yes.
One person wants to know if the partnering organization can be part of the military, such as the Department of Defense or a veterans association. Their organization works with military veterans.
So the only restriction is that we do not allow partners to be from a federal agency. So if it's from the local government or municipality, that's acceptable.
Somebody else asked if the grant can be used in the Virgin Islands.
No. So all the grant activities, as well as the applicants, must be located within our 9-state region, which includes Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee.
Can a school system be a principal partner along with a nonprofit performing arts center?
Only universities and colleges.
You mentioned that individuals more than two, I'm sorry. You mentioned that additional individuals more than the two principal partners can be involved but cannot receive grant funding. Can you please elaborate on that?
Sure. So I know there's been a lot of questions about students being involved, and I'm going to assume that they are perhaps in school at the time. So if there were two partners, let's just say an art center and a community organization, that a school could be involved, or the students from that school could be involved as potential participants and a part of the project's partners, but grant funds cannot be given to the K through 12 student or school in any way. So while partners can extend beyond the two principal partners, grant funds simply can't go to those partners. The responsibilities of the project, expenses, and carrying out of the partners from our perspective is really centered around the two partners, although we do expect, and you can maybe able to see this in some of the previous grant descriptions, that when we talk about community projects, there are usually more than one additional community partner. It really is about using community entities to carry out the project, which might fall outside of the two primary partners.
We have a question from a current grant recipient from the FY22 grants. They're wondering if they can apply for the FY23 grants using a new partnership. And if yes, can the new partner be an underprivileged school district where we would work with the disability department for an in-school visual arts education project?
So an existing grantee cannot apply for a new partnership. They're only allowed to apply for the continuation of or expansion of their project with that partner.
Another
Okay.
Another question came in. We have an established partnership with their landlord, Mecklenburg County. They're engaged in a placemaking project that provides affordable studio, rehearsal, and performance space for artists. They are already providing public-facing programming as part of their regular work. Does this request have to be project-based, or can it be more for an operating grant request that would allow for the involvement of our resident artists?
This grant program is project-based. It doesn't support general operating expenses.
Thank you. If we are a municipal government, can one of our partners be with an arts troupe to help produce an event and bring in artists, even if they are not a nonprofit?
Yes.
We are a nonprofit that serves elders 60 years and older. Can we partner with an individual artist of great repute to develop a class for elders and then offer a public performance?
So a nonprofit organization can partner with an individual artist.
Can an arts council apply in partnership with a municipal entity for temporary public art if the theme of the work falls within South Arts mission?
Was the question, repeat it for me, Ivan?
Can an arts council apply in partnership with a municipal entity for a temporary public art if the theme of the work falls within South Arts mission?
Yes, and not really falling within our mission, but falls within one of the community or social areas that we're trying to impact with this grant program. So if it's just an arts organization partnering with, let's say, a city to create murals across the city, then no. But if the content of the murals and the process of getting to the mural being created involves the community and is addressing a community need or issue, then yes.
Thank you.
And it must be temporary, meaning 1 year or less, not a permanent art installation.
We have a question about accessibility. We have a pilot program with an e-bike company. Would I have to make the case that e-bikes improve accessibility for people with disability in efforts to qualify?
Likely, yes. And perhaps I would encourage that person to give me a call or shoot me an email so we can talk a little bit more about their organization and their project.
This person wants to confirm that a university humanities department would not be considered in the arts. The partnership would be between a symphony orchestra and a local university.
I would say it depends. It really depends on the role of the humanities department and what their focus is going to be. So that one's a little gray. And again, would encourage someone to give me a call or shoot me an email so I can directly answer your question.
Okay, thank you. And we've gone through about 2/3 of the questions. So thank you everybody for everything that's been submitted so far. We will continue to get through as many as we can as time allows.
Sure, and I just want to say that for many of these questions, they are covered in our guidelines and our FAQs. So if we don't get to your question, again, we'd ask that you take a look at those guidelines and FAQs. And of course, you can certainly call or email me with any additional questions.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, Nikki's contact information is posted in the chat window, and it's also available on our website. So the next question is, can you give, this person was asking for examples of previous grants, which we linked to in the chat. For film and media, does the work need to be independent/documentary film, or can it be a more commercial film release?
We have no limitations.
Would a youth storytelling or writing program be appropriate for this opportunity? Would that be considered as art?
Well, I need more information, what the project goal is, who your partner is, and what the overall community impact you're trying to change or strengthen.
This person is a Levitt AMP grant recipient, and congratulations on that, by the way. Big fan of their work. They are producing a 10-week concert series each year, but it's more than just concerts. It promotes social justice. They want to expand on these programs. Would this grant fit? They're the Cultural Arts Division of a city and a nonprofit MLK commission.
So I really need to know more. Again, this grant program is trying to move beyond ongoing programs like a concert series. So if this concert series, the intent of it is to provide social justice, I need to know more about the partner and really how the concerts are used to address the community need to really determine whether or not it would be a good fit for the program.
And we have another.
And again, part of this grant program is not simply to provide services to the community, but to have deep community engagement and involvement.
We have another question. Can an arts educational nonprofit partner with a local artist?
There has to be, I'm going to say no, because one partner has to be an arts partner and one partner has to be a non-arts partner.
What about a play that is performed at a Title I school, both during school for students as well as after school for the community? The play pertains to genocide of the past as well as current genocides. It is also includes teaching students either prior or after the play more in depth.
I don't think this will be a good fit for the program because this program, as I mentioned earlier, is about going beyond traditional arts education or arts in schools.
We have a question whether newspapers are considered non-arts entities.
It depends on the content of the newspaper. But I would generally say likely no, but that again, there's a little bit of gray area there.
Thank you. We have a question about how often this grant comes around. Once a year.
This grant is offered every year, and typically the grant period is an 18-month grant period. Well, I should say project period. And it's offered, it's been offered at different times of the year over the last 3 years. But we do anticipate offering another cycle, hopefully next year. So if you're not able to submit an application this year, we'll likely have a cycle next year. That is what we're expecting.
And I do encourage everybody to make sure that you are subscribed to our email list. I will be adding everybody who registered for this webinar to our email list to keep an eye out for both future cycles of this program as well as the other programs that South Arts offers, both grant making as well as our conferences, convenings, and other services that we offer. So you can be part of essentially the breadth and scope of the entirety of our work. I would also recommend following us on social media, as email and social media are the fastest ways to find out when South Arts offers either renewed cycles of our existing programs, as well as some special opportunities that we are occasionally able to offer.
So I know we have just about 10 more minutes, and if we don't get to all the questions, I then did put my contact information in the chat, but I'll also have it up on the next slide.
Great. This person would like to confirm that it is okay to apply even if they were not previous recipients to this grant.
Yes.
Great. Another person, did I hear correctly that you are only accepting 10 new grantees in total from across all 9 states?
So that is correct. We anticipate accepting 10 10 new grantees from the LOI process and about 5 returning grantees. So we plan to award at least 15 grants this upcoming cycle.
Great. And because this is so highly competitive, we always encourage people to really take a look at the guidelines as well as what we post about the program, so you can truly understand the intent of the program as well as our review criteria, as that will help you understand, especially in these highly competitive grant fields, if you might be a competitive applicant. We have a question from somebody just making sure if partners are from different disciplines, areas, and environment, but both are nonprofits, is that okay?
Sure.
Another person is asking about in-kind donations. Does it matter where the in-kind donations come from? Meaning, if someone involved with a project wants to supplement those funds, could that be done?
Yes.
Another question about the review criteria. Where should we be discussing our evaluative practices in the letter of interest narrative?
We actually don't ask about that in the letter of interest. We are simply trying to collect basic information about your partnership in the project. Again, trying to lower the barrier of this process for everyone that is interested. So that type of detail is not asked in the LOI process, but should you be invited to the full application phase, we will ask you about evaluation.
We have a question for clarification. K-12 schools are not eligible to be a primary partner. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can both partners be nonprofit organizations so long as they serve organizations? For example, an arts center and a history museum.
Yes, both partners can be a nonprofit. Our only requirement that at least one is a nonprofit, and one of those nonprofits or one of the partner entities, depending on your situation, must have a UEI number, and they will be considered the primary partner out of the two.
Great. Would a curated live music concert be fundable? The music would be a social commentary on social justice issues, including racism and the murder of innocent people of color. The musicians would be from diverse backgrounds, and the partner would be a social justice nonprofit.
Perhaps I would say I would need to know more. It sounds like it would, because you are, I heard that there was an arts partner and a non-arts partner, and if the concert is curated and performed to address social justice, yes, I would say that really what would make a project like this stand apart is why these partners are coming together and whether or not this partnership could happen without the two. So really figuring out if this is a unique partnership for your community and how deeply involved are community members. And again, how is the arts going to be used to make the change, the social justice change that you're trying to create?
We have a question. If an individual artist partner with a 501c3 for which they are a board member can be a primary partner for the project.
That will likely be a conflict of interest, but perhaps I need to speak more with you about the project and your involvement, but we would likely consider that a conflict of interest. If a board member or a staff person is the primary artist with a nonprofit, probably would not be accepted.
Another person is asking if you could talk about the timeline for when the project needs to be carried out once again.
Sure. So this project period is for projects beginning January 1st of 2023, and they must end by June 30th of 24. So begin January of 23 and end by June of 24, 18 months.
We have a question Can an artist who has a previous visual art collection establish a partnership with a nonprofit community organization where the artist also works on non-art activities? The art collection will be used to address health issues with organization clients during activities, but not limited to art workshops and exhibitions.
So I think if the exhibition or the artwork is used to provide a community need and provides community engagement activities, it would be eligible. I'd really want to talk to you a little bit more about whether it would be a strong application and how the artwork is going to be used to impact the change that you're trying to create.
We have a question if you could elaborate on the 1 to 2 grant match requirement and what that means.
Sure. So we require a 1 to 2 match for our grant, which means that if you apply for a $5,000 grant, for example, you must match, and we award you $5,000, you must match our grant by $2,500. So for every dollar that you receive from South Arts, you match our dollar by 50 cents. So the match must be $2,500. Out of that $2,500, up to 50% of that can be in kind, but at least 50% or more must be cash. So your match could be $2,500 cash, or it could be $1,250 cash and $1,250 in kind contributions. So the bottom line is for every grant dollar that you receive from South Arts, you match that grant dollar by 50 cents.
Thank you. We have a question whether the partners should be already identified for the letter of interest, and if you can give examples, or if they can give examples of potential partners in the letter of interest.
So the letter of interest, you do have to have the partners identified. And again, that information is transferred to the full application. So whatever is entered into the LOI, it is our expectation that those are the partners that are going to carry out this project. Not simply examples or previous partners that you've worked with, but these are the 2 primary partners for this particular project will need to be identified, and those organizations or artists need to be stated in the LOI.
Okay. And the remaining questions are about whether specific entities might be considered arts partners or non-arts partners. And because we are running out of time, I would recommend that we ask those unanswered questions to reach out to Nikki for the specifics about how those partnerships might be classified.
Yes, and as you can see, my contact info is on the screen. And again, we want to encourage you to carefully read the grant guidelines and take a look at the frequently asked questions, which will be updated soon based on today's webinar. Of course, you can contact me with any additional questions that aren't answered in the guidelines or FAQs. And finally, I just want to say that the projects from the last 3 cycles of the Cross-Sector Impact Grant Program have been very impactful, and we look forward to reviewing your submissions for the upcoming year. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody.